All right, so I wanted to talk a little bit about how we overlap and integrate three fundamental concepts for the intake evaluation process, and then kind of as we progress into the training cycles. And what these are the combinations or the overlapping of movement evaluation and observation, and then the teaching aspect, or what we describe to be movement literacy. So to start out here, and if we're thinking about the intake process, most athletes don't enjoy the process of being evaluated or assessed. It's awkward, it's boring, it's slow. So we really want to try to expedite that as best as we can while still being able to collect the important data and diagnostics that we need. So we look to try to integrate these two, where we continue our evaluation, but then the athlete doesn't necessarily feel like they're being dragged through it. So this is going to be performed through three primary components. The first is our spring ankle series, or our wall drills. The second is going to be our multi-directional hip series, and then the third component is going to be our rudiment series. And from these three pieces, we get a look at an isometric, static, positional strength type of evaluation. The second piece, we get a chance to see what they look like in multiple planes of motion and basic dynamic motions. And then with the third one, we get to see how they react to or tolerate the dynamic or the impact velocity of rudiment plyometrics. The important part of this is that what we are doing early on is creating a movement diagnostic and collecting evaluation or assessment points. But with that teaching component, or the movement literacy piece, we are also then giving them autonomy for their warm-up and movement prep as we go along, which we will continue to use as an evaluating point, and then be able to create dialogue or allow the athlete to have a reference for how they feel for that day. If you've been following our work for any amount of time, surely you've seen this plenty of times on IG and otherwise, but the spring ankle series is really fundamental to us. Everything is going to start from the ground up for the sake of training, and this is an important evaluation piece, and this is something that, again, the athlete is going to see frequently, so we want to be able to teach this early and often. For the athlete, we're going to create a good reference for them. So for Kyla's sake, coming off of an ACL injury, there's probably going to be significant discrepancy between left and right sides. So what we want to do is try to highlight or showcase where those limitations or those deficits may be. Given that it's an ACL, the one that she's performing right now, on this other side when we see it, the heel pumps are probably going to be a little bit trickier for her with that residual ACL. Go ahead and hit the right side. And so the other things that we want to look at here is, how does the trunk position change? Is she able to maintain her same trunk position? What is the degree of bend at the knee when she's in that first position? Is she able to dorsiflex and get her knee over her toe in the second position while maintaining that high heel? How does she transition between position 1 and position 2? And then again, on this last component here with the heel pumps, whenever somebody's coming off of a foot, ankle, or knee injury, this one usually becomes the most challenging. Kyla's doing a great job here, but sometimes athletes won't be able to push that heel all the way down. So again, as an initial evaluator and as an intake process, these are big rocks that we're collecting. But then as this becomes our daily warm-up and our movement prep protocol, we're always able to relate that back to that initial day or that initial time point, so the athlete can communicate with us what they're feeling as we're going through our training cycle. So the second piece we just call our multi-lunge series. We'll have more novice or entry-level athletes do this as just a forward lunge, backward lunge, and then lateral lunge. For somebody who's more intermediate or advanced, you see as Kyla's performing here, we'll do more of a crossover lunge, lateral, and then a curtsy lunge here. Obviously, our big points here are seeing how the hips move in multiple planes of motion. We can see how the center of pressure or the base of support at the foot changes depending on which plane of motion she's going into. And then the other thing that I'm really kind of keen on with this is just seeing generally how they sequence movements, how they string the different patterns or the different positions together, and how they're able to connect position 1 to position 2 to position 3. With the added dynamic here, it's usually just a good opportunity to see how things move a little bit more naturally. We can see if there are, again, any glaring asymmetries left or right, and then what those movement strategies or compensations are. And once again, we're relating daily inputs to that preliminary value, or observation rather, and then also to generating communication off of what we're seeing and what the athlete's feeling. And then so for our third piece, we have our rudiment series. We can plug and play a whole bunch of different combinations here. One that we like to work off of for, again, for virtually any athlete is going to include some form of a pogo, some form of an A-skip, and then some form of a hop. So really here we're getting our primary evaluations are going to be, are they more elastic based or are they more muscle force driven? How does she connect movement together? Is there any glaring deficit moving forwards versus moving backwards? And then again, is there any glaring deficit moving left to right? So from here, we are generating the same criteria, the same points. We're getting an initial evaluating point at our intake process, and then as we go through our training cycle, we're just seeing how these different batteries or these different movements change depending on what our training inputs are or depending on where we are on the return to play timeline. So to recap everything here, we're thinking about our intake process, collecting our initial evaluation points, our big rocks, utilizing those as an opportunity to teach the athlete or create movement literacy for what we are going to be doing frequently throughout training, and then thereafter using this as a daily evaluator to see both how the athlete has progressed from our initial point and then how the athlete is responding to the current training cycle that we're in.